So Trump is attacking Thomas Massie, threatening to primary him or to back a primary challenge come the midterms. What in the world is going on? Thomas Massie is very much beloved by many, many Republicans. In fact, I have to say that this fight has really shown something interesting coming out of the MAGA world, the Republican side, something that Democrats don't do. And I'm going to get to that. But first, let's talk about what the beef is about. So this is this is about a continuing resolution. Basically, the government's going to shut down Friday at midnight if these guys in Congress can't get it together and pass a budget bill, right? But really, they're not going to pass an appropriations bill. What they're going to do is they're just going to pass a stopgap, a Band-Aid, a continuing resolution to just keep funding going as is until we hash it out and pass an actual appropriations bill later. And this has been going on for a while. This whole, all right, let's just keep it funded the way that it is, and we will hash it out later. We'll duke it out later, and we'll pass an appropriations funding bill later. That's what they've been doing. They've just been kicking the can down the road. Thomas Massie's sick of kicking the can down the road. So he says, I'm not voting for the continuing resolution budget, cut, copy, paste, omnibus this week. Why would I vote to continue the waste, fraud, and abuse DOGE has found? We were told the CR, the continuing resolution, in December would get us to March when we would fight. Here we are in March, punting again. So he's saying, he's not going to do this. So Trump responds. And what Massie is trying to explain is that, so every year the budget is supposed to be passed by October 1st. That's the deadline. Congress often doesn't make the deadline. So what they do is they pass a stopgap funding bill for a few months, and that buys them some time to actually get the budget passed to avoid a government shutdown. So usually what happens as October 1st looms is sometime in September, they do like a 3-month extension on the current funding. They just do a stopgap, a continuing resolution. And then in December, they've got to go, they're supposed to then get it together by December. So it's buying them 3 months of time. What happened this last time was September, they passed a continuing resolution saying we can't agree on anything, so we're just going to have to keep the government funded. And the Republican stance at that time was a new government is coming in, a new administration. We're about to have elections. We want to wait and see. We don't want to pass funding for the entire next year when we might be getting an entirely new administration. They weren't wrong on that. So they kicked the can down the road and they said, we'll do this in December after we know the outcome of the election. So they did a stopgap funding bill, 3 months. Come December, what did they do? They then said, well, okay, we know Donald Trump has won, but now let's wait for him to take office so that we can really implement the president's vision. So let's kick the can down the road to March. Well, now here we are in March, and Republicans have control of everything. Donald Trump is in office. Republicans have the House, they have the Senate. But what do they want to do? Oh, they want to kick the can down the road again. And they want this particular continuing resolution to get them all the way until September, when they need to pass a new appropriations bill by October 1st in order to have a new budget. You know what that means? That means having an entire year without an actual passed budget. That means that they just did kicking the can down the road for an entire year rather than actually do their job, which is get together, hash it out, and come up with a budget. So Thomas Massie is fed up with that. And not only that, but what his point is, as he mentioned in this tweet, is that, this is what is DOGE out there doing? They're slashing budgets. They're saying we're saving you Americans money. Well, that money isn't really actually saved because the budget is still passed by Congress and the money is still appropriated. So Congress has to reverse the appropriation. So what DOGE is doing is saying, look, we don't need all this money. Look at all this waste, fraud, and abuse. We don't need it. So let's slash it with our chainsaw. And then Congress can say, okay, great. We don't need that money anymore because it's just been slashed by DOGE. They found all this waste, fraud, and abuse. So let's cut that from the budget and let's reduce the budget. But that has to be done by Congress, and Congress isn't doing it. And Massie's saying, why aren't we doing that now? Like, here we are, DOGE is slashing. So why don't we need to pass a budget that's smaller, that slashes funding. Trump didn't like that idea. Trump wants the funding. So he wants it, and it would be basically at the same levels that it's been under Biden year after year after year. Nothing would change. The budget's the same. American taxpayers are paying for this. Trump wants to do that. But Republicans made a few changes to the continuing resolution that would allow Trump the same amount of money, but he personally, it would give the executive office the ability to move the money where he wants it to move. So it's not saving taxpayers any dollars. It's just rearranging the budget where you're spending it. So now you could say, well, that might be better because we're spending it on better things. But no, you know what? What he said when he ran was that he was going to slash the budget. That's what people voted on him for. They don't want to continue adding trillions and trillions of dollars to the national debt every single year. It doesn't matter what you're spending it on. Cut the waste. We cannot afford it. I don't care if you want to spend it over here and the other one, it's like a husband and a wife fighting over what they're spending their money on. You don't have the money. You're just taking out loans. Why are you taking out these loans over and over and fighting over who gets to spend the loan money? I mean, that's what's happening. So Trump wants his money. He wants his money. He doesn't care that it's adding to the debt. He wants his money. He says Congressman Thomas Massie voted to delay the debt ceiling bill from the Biden administration to the Trump administration from September before the election to June after the election without getting anything for this horrendously stupid move when Republicans could have gotten everything they wanted. He additionally voted to delay the current budget disaster from the Biden administration to the Trump administration. I was running for office at the time, doing my thing, and when I heard about this, it was quite simply hard to believe. A catastrophic mistake. Now and virtually on every other vote, he's very simple no. He can't even approve a continuing resolution when he approved them many times during his career as a congressman. Thomas Massie is a grandstander, and the great people of Kentucky are going to be watching a very interesting primary in the not too distant future. Thomas Massie says, now remember AIPAC went after Thomas Massie and didn't even do a dent. They thought they could. And he says, someone thinks they can control my voting card by threatening my reelection. Guess what? Doesn't work on me. 3 times I've had a challenger who tried to be more MAGA than me. None busted 25% because my constituents prefer transparency and principles over blind allegiance. And I think Thomas Massie is right. And what has been so fascinating to see on the Republican side that you never see on the Democrat side is this has divided the Republicans. They are divided. A lot of them are like, yeah, get rid of Massie. He's no good. But a huge number of Republicans. I mean, Trump is even being ratioed by his own base. His own base is saying, sir, they all like Thomas Massie. They all love Thomas Massie. This was the meme that they put out there. Sir, they all love Thomas Massie. And it is true. Republicans love Thomas Massie. The libertarian wing loves Thomas Massie, and he's very principled. And Trump is picking the wrong fight. And what's so great to see is that so many Republicans are breaking ranks, and they're saying, no, look, I like Trump. I support him on so many other things, but I don't support him on his attack on Thomas Massie. And even if I don't agree with Thomas Massie completely with this continuing resolution vote, I still support Thomas Massie. Leave our sacred cow alone. That has been so fascinating to watch because with Democrats, they basically say you have to support everything we say and you have to support everyone we say and you have to demonize everybody we want. And if you don't, you are not allowed to step out of line on the Democrat side. If you are, because suddenly you're a Trump supporter. I mean, that's how they'll characterize you. Oh, you big Trump supporter. You're right wing, and they'll push you out. They will push you out if you have a different opinion. And what has been really refreshing to see with Republicans is they'll battle it out with each other. And that is the way it should be within a political party. And all of these people are not instead blindly saying, you're right, Thomas Massie sucks. We hate him now. Now they're saying, sir, we all love Thomas Massie. So this isn't the fight you want to pick. Thomas Massie also says that the tweet from Trump's account is very misleading. He says, I never voted for a CR that became law. I did vote for a CR under McCarthy that included an 8% cut to all discretionary spending, but unfortunately that continuing resolution did not become law. Do your research and you'll find I've been consistent. So what Thomas Massie's beef is with the continuing resolution is that it is continuing to fund the government at the current levels, and that's not sustainable. His beef is the debt, and he wanted a president that was going to reduce that debt, and so far that's not being done. Now, the Trump side will say, yes, it is. We've cut some money from this, and let's get to the truth about what the continuing resolution does cut. It does shave off $7 billion in discretionary spending, but keep in mind that the entire discretionary spending budget is $1.6 trillion. So shaving $7 billion is like a few pennies in a normal household budget. I mean, this is very negligible. Yes, it is lower. That's better than what it normally is. So I'll give them credit. Normally it just inflates. And this time it does go down by 7 billion. And that's an improvement, but it's not the cut. That's just not the cuts we need. We need to shave like the $1 trillion. And we have to shave a lot because we're in so much debt. And every single year we add $2 trillion to the national debt annually. So we have to shave 2 trillion. So 7 billion, guys, is just not enough to even write home about or to say, well, it cuts the budget by 7 billion bucks. We need to cut 2 trillion in order to stop the national debt. I mean, we wouldn't really probably do 2 trillion, but we at least need to cut about $1 trillion in order to keep that debt from incredible inflation. And really, we should start paying it down. So that's the beef between these two. Ron Paul, who's always also very principled, this is what he wrote out. He says, House Speaker Mike Johnson is pushing Republicans to pass yet another continuing resolution to keep funding the government at current levels until September. That means all the cuts by the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, are just smoke and mirrors, as the Trump administration will be spending at the levels of the Biden and even Obama administrations. And that's just the reality of it. And that's what Thomas Massie's saying. And that's why Rand Paul also says he's not voting for the continuing resolution, because it's just spending at the same levels. And the whole point is we have to reduce the debt because we're leaving this horrible debt for future generations. So the Trump supporters, because even the Freedom Caucus actually supports this particular stopgap bill, which is rare because the Freedom Caucus usually doesn't support continuing resolutions at all. But this is why they say they're supporting it. This is the Freedom Caucus chair, Andy Harris.
The first question I always get asked is, first of all, what's the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus doing at a press conference about continuing resolutions? Well, I'll tell you, the bottom line is that a continuing resolution is usually the first step to an omnibus bill. That's why traditionally the House Freedom Caucus has opposed continuing resolutions. This clearly is not. This is a continuing resolution that goes to the end of the fiscal year and therefore negates the need for any consideration of any omnibus bill. Second of all, this is the first continuing resolution in my 14 years here that actually reduces the amount of spending from the previous year, while funding the military, funding veterans, funding the women, infants, and children programs we heard, and importantly, funding the deportation of criminal illegal aliens that are threatening our communities. So I'm 100% behind this continuing resolution. This is not your grandfather's continuing resolution. This is a different type of spending bill that I think is the way that we need to do it in order to keep the Trump administration, Elon Musk, and DOGE to continue its promise to the American people to fight fraud, waste, and abuse in the federal government and increase its efficiency. Again, 100% support. The Freedom Caucus has issued its support of yesterday issued its support of the continuing resolution. Thank you.
Okay, so they normally don't ever do that, but he says, well, this is the first time it actually reduces again by 7 billion. It does increase spending for defense. This continuing resolution increases defense spending by $6 billion compared to last fiscal year. It also increases funding for military personnel, pay raises, naval shipbuilding, other defense priorities, some for the border. And then it cuts non-defense discretionary spending by about $13 billion from the previous fiscal year. And so it leaves, it's $7 billion less. But again, when your discretionary spending budget is $1.6 trillion, $7 billion is just not enough. And I understand both sides of this. I don't think either side is wrong. I certainly don't think this is worth primarying Thomas Massie over. I think, his beef is, why aren't we having this fight right now? You told me in September that we needed to kick the can down the road to December because we needed to wait to see who won the election. Okay, we did that. Then in December, all of you kicked the can down the road saying, all right, we'll do it in March because that's when we're all going to be in office and we can actually do something because it's a bunch of Republicans running around the joint. And here it is in March, and they're still not doing anything. And Elon Musk is cutting all the money from DOGE, but it's not coming back to the American people. It's not reducing the spending. It isn't yet. I mean, it is just smoke and mirrors at this point. Like, yay, we slash this. Well, where did the money go? Because you still have the money. It's like if I gave you an allowance of $20 a week or something, and then you say, look, I cut my candy spending down to, I reduced it from $18 down to $17. And I'm like, great, you didn't give me the dollar back. What did you do with the rest of your money? What did you do with that extra dollar? The kid's like, I bought crack cocaine. Don't worry about it, Mom. We're trying to get the money back to where the kid comes to us and says, look, I don't need $20 from you anymore, Mom. Why don't you keep that $5? I only need 15 because I was able to reduce my spending. And we all know that that's not realistic. No kid will do that. And neither will Congress because they're a bunch of kids. And they want their money and they want to be able to spend it however they want to spend it. And that's what Trump is doing. So he's not even being what he ran on, which was, I'm going to cut the budget. We're going to slash this. We can't continue on this national debt. He's now saying, ooh, boo-hoo, I don't like the way the Democrats spend it. I want the money so I can spend it the way I want. And that's what this continuing resolution really effectively does. So, yeah, I mean, it is better. It's better. It's an improvement because it does cut rather than inflate a little. It's also better because this one is written in a way that it won't lead to a bunch of those pork-filled omnibus packages. This one kind of eliminates, which is what the Freedom Caucus chair was talking about. It eliminates that ability for them to start, adding in a bunch of pork. Okay, great. So we're not expanding, but we're not also reducing to the level we really need to reduce. And that's the beef. Now, why is Thomas Massie really under attack, I think is a better question. Thomas Massie is as you know, or maybe you don't, but Thomas Massie has stood up against AIPAC. He does not take any AIPAC funding. Trump, on the other hand, has taken $230 million in various, not just AIPAC, but other Jewish, Israeli-backed, pro-Israel, Zionist movements and individuals have given Donald Trump a significant chunk of money. Thomas Massie has not been bought by any of the Zionist or pro-Israel lobbies. And they have gone after him for that. And he won in the last election, even though AIPAC tried to go after him. And they have vowed now to take the fight even further with him. And I think the way they're fighting him is they're not just using ad spending in Kentucky. They're clearly telling all their attack dogs in Washington to go after Thomas Massie, even for something as small as opposing the continuing kicking the can down the road. That is such a tiny thing to oppose him over, when the reality of this is that in order for this continuing resolution to make it even out of Congress, I mean, it's got to go to the Senate. So the House, it's just got to be a majority vote. And Thomas Massie, some other Republicans have indicated that they're not sure they're going to vote for it. But yet Thomas Massie's the one that they're targeting. And once it gets out of the House, if it does, it's got to go to the Senate. And guess how much it's got to pass the Senate by? 60 votes. That's not going to happen. Every Democrat said they're going to oppose it. So it's already dead on arrival. It has to be worked out because you already have Rand Paul in the Senate not going to vote for it either. So now you don't have the 60 votes in the Senate. So why are you attacking Massie? This is why I think they're attacking him. I think this is an AIPAC. I know it all comes back to this, but because otherwise it doesn't make sense. And AIPAC has vowed very publicly to go after Thomas Massie and to oust him because he's not on their side. He's not doing the pro-Israel agenda here in the United States. And so they went and they got all of their AIPAC sponsored, and we say AIPAC loosely because when we say AIPAC, we mean it for all the pro-Israel lobby. It's just kind of an all-encompassing term like Kleenex, right? So the AIPAC lobby has put Thomas Massie in their crosshairs. And I think they've sicked the entire the AIPAC funded Congress, which is basically everybody. They're sicking him on Thomas in order to try to get the people to say, well, if all the Republicans hate him, he must be bad. He must be. But the people see through it because the Republican base is also extremely divided on Israel. More and more are aware that we have been completely subverted by a foreign country. We are completely under control by a foreign country. They're harming Americans' free speech. They're harming Americans by putting our soldiers at risk in the Middle East constantly. They are not an ally to this country. They're an enemy of the state. And people are starting to actually figure that out on the Republican side. So I think that's the real reason why Thomas Massie has found himself in the crosshairs of Trump. But once again, we'll just go back to this, sir. They all love Thomas Massie. Oh, because it's true. He is the most principled and the best in Congress. You can always trust that he's going to give you the real opinion, the real deal, and that he is not bought off. And we don't need to get rid of Thomas Massie. We need a lot more Thomas Massies. You've been watching a clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you there.